In this video, we are going to continue working on Recipe Fragment, and well, actually, let's just go look at a demo because I think it's hard to describe UI stuff without looking at the UI. So in this video, as I said, we are going to be building this UI right here. So when we navigate to Recipe Fragment, I'll just go back just to show you. If I click on one of these recipes, we're going to work on this UI. So we have a picture at the top, we have a title, we have a score for the recipe, updated at date, and this is scrollable also if the ingredients get too long. And then down below we have kind of all of the ingredients. So building this entire view using Jetpack Compose. All right, so let's go into components. Right click, go to new Kotlin file, and call this recipe view. And this will be essentially, everything that's contained inside of a recipe fragment, almost. So annotate with @composable function recipe view. Now the arguments here will be, we just need one argument. That's going to be the recipe itself. So getting that in here, getting that import. Now opening this up, and let's build this. So this needs to be scrollable first of all, because if the ingredients get too long, then of course the user needs to be able to scroll. So I'm going to be using scrollable column. I'm not going to use a lazy scrollable column because that's really, sort of like the replacement of a recycler view. We only need to use that if the column can be like any length essentially. This one is going to be a predefined length. It's only going to be as long as however many ingredients there is. So just using a scrollable column is perfectly fine. Now I'm going to do a modifier. I want to do fill maximum width to make sure we use the entire X space available. The Y space is going to be occupied by the scrollable column. It doesn't matter if we don't occupy all of the Y space, but we have to make sure we do occupy all of the width. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to check for each field inside of the recipe. So for example, I'll do recipe.featuredImage $.let, and then I will get that image URL. So if this is not null, then we want to display that. So value image equals load picture. We've looked at the load picture function much earlier in the course. If you don't know what this load picture function is, I encourage you to go back to, I don't know, probably like 20 videos ago when we built this. Now the default image will be the default recipe image like we used before. And then of course, just calling .value to get that value. Now, once we have that image, I can do a null check on it. So if that image is not null, pass this into the Lambda. And now we can use a image composable. So get that import, do bitmap equals image.asImage bitmap. We can set a modifier, do modifier.fill maximum width. The image must go to the edge of the screen, and then just set a preferred height of, image height. So image height, and do .dp. This image height constant will be defined, I guess we can put it up top here. So just define it up here, do constant value image underscore height, and let's do, I don't know, 260. So the height of this thing will be 260 dp. I didn't really pick that for any particular reason other than this is just the height that I think looks good inside of the fragment. Now the next parameter for our image will be, let's do a comma and do content scale. So content scale equals content scale dot crop. So just going to crop that image if it is too large, just to make it fit inside of the view. Now the next sort of composable we need to work on is, so this is kind of the top image. So if we refer back to the finished version of the app, let me click on a different recipe. Which one do I like? I like these cookies. Let's click on the cookies. So we need it to occupy this kind of amount of space at the top, occupies the entire width. Now we need to work on this compartment down here. So we have like the title and the score. So you can think of this as a row right here with the title and the score. And then this would be a row, and then the ingredients will all be individual rows. So we need a column. So I'll scroll down here to give you guys a better view. Say column, I'll add a modifier to this. I wish compose didn't do that, didn't go to the next line. So let's do modifier dot fill maximum width, and also do padding, and then just do, I don't know, do 8 dp of padding. Now inside of the column, I want to check for the other fields. So the first one is the recipe. So if the recipe title does not, or sorry, the first one is the title. So recipe.title, if that title is not null, pass that into the Lambda. And here's where I want to create that row. So inside of this row is where the title and the score are going to be. So let me add a modifier to this. So modifier equals modifier modifier.fill maximum width. I'm not sure if I need to use fill maximum width in this case, but I'm just adding it here for good measure. I also maybe didn't have to use it here, but it's not going to hurt to add it, so I just added it anyway. So now this row right here, if we refer back to the finished version of the app, is this row right here. So we have the title and we have the score. And these are both separated. So like this is hugging the edge and this is hugging the edge. So the way these are oriented is all of the space is between them. So you could orient them with space between, or you could just use alignment and align one to the start and one to the end. It doesn't really matter. Whichever way you choose is fine. So let's do text composable, say text equals the title. Now do modifier equals modifier dot fill maximum width and do 0.85%. So it's not going to fill the entire width. I'm only filling a maximum of 85% of the width, and then do wrap content width. So wrap content width and do alignment dot start. So alignment dot start. That's going to force the title to be the farthest to the left possible, which is what we want. And we're leaving 15% on the other side for that score. We need to make sure that we leave a little bit of space for that. So, because if the title is too long, we need to make sure that it doesn't occupy too much space. Now do style equals, let's do material theme. So material theme dot typography. And we've looked at this earlier in the course when we worked on the theming stuff. And I'm going to give this an H3 for the text style. Now I need to get the rank. So this one I'm not going to check if it's null. I'm just going to assume that it isn't null. Now I will copy this text composable and do the rank here. We want to do fill maximum width instead of just passing a fraction. So it occupies the remaining fraction, which will be 15%. And I can do wrap content width and align this to the end instead of aligning to the start. And then also because this text is going to be smaller. So we talked about this when we worked on the theming stuff. Because this text is smaller, it's an H5, it occupies less space as text. We also need to make sure that we center this thing vertically. So go to the next line and do align and do alignment.center vertically. Because the title, if we take a look at the finished version of the app, the title is going to occupy much more space than the score because of the text size. So this basically, the title delegates how big this, how much vertical space this row will occupy. So if we don't center the score vertically, it will end up kind of up awkwardly at the top. So we have to make sure that we call center vertically on the alignment to make sure it gets centered right in the middle of that row. Now the next field will be the publisher. So come down below, do recipe.publisher .let. So same kind of thing, checking if it's null. If it isn't, then we're going to get this publisher value inside of the lambda. Also, we can get updated. So value updated equals recipe.date updated. Now add another text composable and go to the next line with this just to kind of clean it up. So the text here is going to be, we need to write an if statement. So I'll do if else, open this up. That looks really weird. That should be tabbed over. So if, let's say, updated does not equal null, then we're going to have updated by, or updated and then the updated date, and then say by the publisher. So updated at some date by the publisher. Oh, what happened there? By the publisher. Otherwise, it'll just be updated and we'll say by whatever that publisher is. So if there is a date updated, which all of the recipes will contain a date updated, there's definitely no question about that. If it doesn't, then that means the data is bad. Something is wrong with the data. So we expect to see most of the time it's going to say updated on June 2020 by Mitch. That is kind of the example sentence. If there isn't an updated date, it'll just say by Mitch. Now come down and let's add a modifier. So modifier equals modifier, do dot fill maximum width, and just add some padding of 8 dp on the bottom. I'll actually move this to the next line just to kind of clean this up. So do bottom equals 8.dp. Okay, so now the next one is the description, I believe. So recipe dot description question mark let description, same kind of thing we've been doing. Open that up, go into the lambda. Oh, I actually forgot one thing. I forgot the text style. So up here inside of this text composable, just do style equals material theme dot typography and do dot caption. I don't actually know like what caption is for, but I'm assuming it means like it's some kind of a lighter text style. So this is a date. If you look at the finished version of the app, the date I think should be like lighter and smaller than everything else. So that's why I'll try out this caption thing and we'll just see if it looks good. Okay, so back to the description. So recipe description, if it is not null. So first of all, The recipe can actually be something else. It can be if the description does not equal none applicable. This is something that I put inside of the API. So technically, this is actually pointless. So I'm going to remove it because the description field was never part of the actual recipe data structure. I added it in the API thinking that in the future, I'm going to add some kind of a description, but every single recipe in the API, I know this for a fact because I built the API, every single description it equals none applicable because none of them have one. So we can just delete this because it's completely pointless. In the future, I might add a description field to the API, but for now it's nothing. So I'll just get rid of that. So now for the ingredients, let's do for ingredient in recipe.ingredients. And now we can do kind of a row for each individual ingredient. Since we're inside of a column, they're already going to be rows. So I just need to use a text composable. I can do text equals ingredient, modifier equals modifier, dot fill maximum width, and do padding. Let me get those to the next line just to kind of clean this up a little bit. Do again padding on the bottom and set that equal to 8dp. Now the next field will be the style and do material. Whoops, that needs to be a capital. Material theme dot typography dot body number 1. So there's some more fields. Like if you look at the recipe, there's description, which I already talked about. That one technically does exist, but I know for a fact there's none of them inside the API. There's also cooking instructions. That's another field that I added, just like description. So I know for a fact that in the API, all of the cooking instructions, they do not exist. That was just something that I added thinking in the future I would add something. So we're going to leave that one out. Source URL is the URL that the recipe was retrieved from originally, somewhere on the internet. So that one's not really necessary. You can add that if you want. So other than that, we're pretty much done. I'm gonna leave it at that. We have the list of ingredients, we have the publisher and also the date, we have the rank, we have the title, and we have the image. So that's everything that we need to build a view like this: image, title, rank, date, and publisher. So here it says updated November 11th, 2020 by Jessica, and then just a list of recipes down below. Now let's get this thing into our recipe fragment. And it looks like I have a warning here. Actually, we can take care of that. Just Alt Enter and add that experimental coroutines API. So now go into recipe fragment and we can finish kind of adding all this stuff. So come to the top, do @inject late init var application and insert the base application. We need this for our dark and light theme, just like we did in recipe list fragment. Now I want the snack bar controller. So private value snack bar controller, snack bar controller. And this will be a snack bar, just set it equal to snack bar controller and initialize that with the life cycle scope. Get that life cycle scope. And this is going to give me a warning saying I need to add an experimental annotation. Let's add that to the class instead of just the variable. So that annotation goes up here. I forgot an R there, snack bar controller. Now scroll down to our composable here and let's delete this column. We don't need this. Now we're going to build our entire kind of view just like we did with recipe list fragment. So we're going to use a scaffold. So we need a scaffold state. So say value scaffold state equals remember scaffold state. Now we're going to use our app theme. So app theme, open this up. Dark theme, we just do application.isDark.value, just like we did in the recipe list fragment. Now we can use that scaffold and open this up, and we have to pass a bunch of parameters to this scaffold. First one is the scaffold state. So set that equal to the scaffold state variable. Now do snack bar host and open this up as a function. Do scaffold state.snackbarHost state. And that's actually it for the scaffold here. We don't have a search bar or anything, so it's pretty straightforward. Now the content inside the scaffold, this will be where we put the recipe view that we just built. But it's not quite that simple. We need a box because we have our progress bar, we have our snack bar, we have a bunch of stuff that we need to add to this thing. So let's get the modifier first of all and do fill maximum size for this box. Now open this box up and do if we are loading and the recipe equals null, then we want to show some text that just says, we are loading. So I'll just say, loading ... Later, we're going to replace this with that shimmer animation that we used in the recipe list fragment, but for one individual recipe. So if we are not loading, meaning if we actually have the recipe, if we were able to retrieve it from the API, then I want to do recipe.let, and let's do recipe. Well, I guess we can just use it. I guess it is fine here since we already have a variable that's named recipe. I think that would cause some confusion. So first I want to kind of simulate a snack bar. So I'm going to manually trigger a snack bar. I'm going to say if the recipe ID equals 1, then I want to show a snack bar. So I can do snack bar controller, show snack bar, pass the scaffold state, pass a message, say, an error occurred, occurred. Is that how you spell occurred? Is it 1 R or 2? I think it's 2 R's. An error occurred with this recipe, and we'll do, action label and just set that equal to OK. So this serves no purpose other than strictly as a demonstration. So if I click on the recipe that happens to have the ID, 1, then it's going to show a snack bar just to, make sure that it's all working. Otherwise, I want to do recipe view and then just pass the recipe to it. So this is giving me a warning. Press Alt Enter on here. Or is it giving me a warning? Yeah, it's giving me a warning. Oh, there it is. It's working now. So we get that annotation. Now the last two things that we need to add to this is the progress bar and also the snack bar. So coming down below here, we want to be inside of the box, but we don't want to be inside of this if-else logic. So come down below the else case and do circular indeterminate progress bar. Now for is displayed, we would just pass our loading Boolean. And just like we did in the recipe list fragment, pass a vertical bias of 0.3. So it's 30% down from the top of the screen. Now the last thing here is going to be the default snack bar. So let's clean this up to give you guys a better view of this. So the snack bar host state equals the scaffold state dot snack bar host state, exactly the same thing as we did in recipe list fragment. Now for on dismiss, we want to do scaffold state, snack bar host state, current snack bar data, question mark, dot dismiss. So if that current snack bar data is not null, then dismiss that snack bar. And last but not least, we need to add a modifier to center or move this snack bar down to the bottom and center it on the screen. So modifier dot align and do alignment dot bottom center. So exactly the same thing as we did in recipe list fragment. All right, I think that's it. I think that's our UI. So of course, keep in mind that we don't have our shimmer animation yet, but we have our sort of loading text here for the time being. So let's run this and we will test to make sure that when we click on a recipe, all of that data gets shown after it gets it from the API. And we'll also test our snack bar here by clicking on the recipe with ID equals 1. All right, so here is the app running. We'll click on our classic pulled pork recipe here. There's loading, and then boom, there you go. There is everything for this recipe. Now, the only thing that looks weird to me is this padding right here. I can see here that the title looks like it has a little bit of padding on the edge, which is not what I want. So let's go into recipe view and go to wherever this title is. And right here, it says padding 8dp all around. I think what I meant to do is bottom. So make sure that the padding is only on the bottom, and that should fix that problem. So let's just rerun that and make sure that that got fixed. Okay, there's the app launching, and now let's click on our pulled pork recipe again. There we get loading, and everything looks good now. So let me just click on another recipe to make sure it's working. There's a cookie recipe, loading, and there's all the information for the cookie. Now to trigger the snack bar, we want to click on the recipe that has recipe ID equals 1. Now for you, there's no way that you could possibly figure this out other than, actually querying the API using Postman or something. But I built the API, so obviously I know what ID is 1, and that's this recipe right here. So this one, cauldron cakes, home pastry affair. This is the recipe with ID equals 1. So if I click on this, we expect to see a snack bar, and there it is. An error occurred with this recipe. So that looks like it's working as we expect. That's it, boys and girls. That's our UI for Recipe Fragment. Now we can click on recipes. We can go check them out. It looks, it's starting to look pretty good. Other than we just need to work on the shimmer animation and then a few sort of clean up things at the very end. So I should be able to finish the course in 2 more lectures. The next one's going to be the shimmer animation for Recipe Fragment. And then the one after that will be just sort of a little bit of a cleanup. That's it for this video. Don't forget your engagement. Tell me something about yourself. Go down there in the comments. Doesn't even have to be related to the video. Just tell me something. Write something down there. Leave a like. And as always, I will see you guys in that next video. Hey, what are you still doing here? The video's over. Well, since you're still here, I guess I'll show you the best Android courses that exist on the planet. I got all kinds of high quality courses. If you scroll on down on the homepage, there's the Jetpack Compose one that you're watching right now. There's that course. We have MVI architecture, if you've ever been curious about that. We have my classic powerful Android apps with Jetpack architecture. This shows you everything from, well, the focus on this one is pretty much database caching. We get data from a real API, we cache it, we basically design an app to work when there's no network connection. That is what this project is all about. We have some UI testing, another UI testing, HILT, which we actually went over in this course. We got clean architecture. This one's probably the best. This is definitely the best course on my website. If you are a professional or you are looking to get into the industry, the skills that you learn in this course are absolutely fundamental. This will give you a big edge in any job environment, whether you're applying or you're already at a job and you want to just improve your skills. This is a really, really, really high quality course. It's hard. Your brain might explode while watching it, but you will learn a lot. You'll learn a lot of really, really fundamental skills. You know, anything from getting data from the network, caching data, designing different layers, abstracting out the different layers so that you can write unit tests, espresso tests, so UI tests, Dagger, navigation components, everything. It's beautiful. Definitely, this is the best course on the website.